Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us from different parts of the world. It's great to have you here. I'm Marina Hakobian, board member of Armenian Shakespeare Association in Armenia. Welcome to ASA Shakespeare International Conference Online. Today, 28th of April 2026. This is our second conference session. Let's get started. Our first speaker is Bálint Szele from Hungary, associate professor at the University of Pannonia, where he teaches translation and interpreting studies. His research focuses on Shakespeare, literary, translation, and intercultural studies. He is the author of 3 books on Jean Monnet, on the theory and practice of Shakespeare translation, and on the literary translator Lőrinc Szabó. Please join me welcoming Bálint Szele. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I understand you hear me, probably also see me on the video, and you can see my shared PowerPoint presentation. And this speech today is going to speak about one of Shakespeare's most political plays. Now, as Hungary is in a sort of a political transition, this is going to be very timely. So Macbeth is one of Shakespeare's most political plays, and not because it is about kings or succession, but because it makes power immediately legible. When we watch Macbeth, we do not need help to recognize tyranny. The play almost forces interpretation upon us. There is a well-known remark in Hungarian theatre criticism. Macbeth is thick enough to hit the target without any help. Whenever it is staged, there will be somebody to think of. In most contexts, this is simply an observation about the play's universality. In Hungary, however, it becomes something else. In a 20th century shaped by dictatorship, censorship, and ideological control, a play that always points to power cannot remain neutral. It becomes inevitably politically charged, whether or not the theater intends it to be. My argument today is that Hungarian productions of Macbeth are defined by a tension. They oscillate between making political meaning visible and actively suppressing that visibility. In other words, Macbeth in Hungary is never just interpreted, it is managed. I will illustrate this through 3 key moments: 1939, 1950, and 1963. These productions that show 3 productions that show how political meaning emerges, is controlled, and then strategically silenced. Macbeth has been one of the longest staged plays in Hungary. You can see that from the slide. It's been staged since 1812, and it has always been one of the most recognized plays. Now we're going to 1939. The 1939 production at the National Theatre is often described as a psychological interpretation. Macbeth is presented as a soldier, a hero who gradually becomes a tyrant. The focus is clearly on inner transformation, on ambition, hesitation, and collapse. And yet the critical reception tells a more complex story. One reviewer writes, "The bloody passions of raw lust for power rage with unleashed fury, just like in our time." This is 1939. War has just begun. What matters here is not simply that the play is political. What matters is how it becomes political. The production itself does not impose a political reading, but the audience and the critics cannot avoid it. Even more striking are moments where interpretation becomes almost involuntary. Descriptions of the witches, for example, are filtered through contemporary anxieties, even anti-Semitic imagery. The play absorbs the language of its moment. So what we see here is a first stage. Macbeth is an intuitive political mirror, not controlled, not imposed, but already impossible to neutralize. In 1950, there was another context, interpretation under pressure. By 1950, the situation changes radically. Hungary has undergone communist takeover, nationalization of theaters, and strict ideological control. Literature and theater now must serve a purpose. In this context, Macbeth is no longer allowed to generate meaning freely. It must produce the correct meaning. In the 1950 production, Macbeth is no longer a tragic figure. He is a pathological tyrant, stripped of ambiguity. The heroic dimension disappears almost entirely. Critical language reflects this shift very cleanly. One reviewer writes, "This decay in blood and filth has a lot of similarities with the decay of capitalism." This is no longer interpretation, this is instruction. But this is only one layer of the situation. There is another, more complex dynamic beneath it. Because Macbeth is a dangerous play, it can resemble Hitler, Stalin, or any dictator, any contemporary figure of power. And this creates a tension. Everyone understands more than they are allowed to say. The official reading is clear and controlled, but the possible meanings exceed that control. And yet they cannot be articulated. So meaning is caught in a paradox. It is overproduced by ideology and restricted by silence. This is perhaps the most unstable moment in the Hungarian history of Macbeth, because the play is simultaneously politically explicit and politically unspeakable. Then, you probably know, but I just touch upon it very briefly, then came the revolution of 1956, when hardline communism was put to an end, and then came what we call the goulash communism, so a much softer dictatorship. People of Hungary understood that socialism is to remain for a long time, so they tried to figure out a modus vivendi, and depoliticization came as a strategy. Macbeth will show this very clearly. By 1963, we entered a different phase. The harshest period of Stalinism was over. Kádár's regime has consolidated power. The system is more stable, but also more subtle. And here something unexpected happens. The fresh production of Macbeth removes political meaning. One reviewer notes explicitly, "The production does not attempt any far-fetched association, not even a hint at anything." At first glance, this might seem like a return to neutrality, but that would be misleading. This is not the absence of politics, it is a response to it, because the danger has not disappeared. It has only changed form. Too explicit a political reading could still be risky. Too clear a parallel could still be dangerous. So the production turns inward. Psychological focus, internal conflict, emotional abstraction. In this context, depoliticization becomes a form of self-protection. This is characteristic of the broader cultural system of the time: controlled expression, indirect communication, what we might call doublespeak. And meaning is still there, but it is no longer declared. In late socialism and after 1989, Macbeth significantly changed again. From the 70s onwards, we see another shift. Productions increasingly rely on central metaphors, visual structures, symbolic staging. For example, a massive iron crown dominating the stage, or a mud-filled performance space. Politics is not gone, but it is displaced into form. After 1989, the political system changes completely. Censorship disappears, theaters regain freedom. And yet something is lost. The urgency of interpretation weakens. Macbeth is still performed, but often with less intensity, less necessity, less existential weight. When there is no longer anything at stake, interpretation itself becomes lighter. And let me get to my conclusion before my final remarks. Let me return to the starting point. Macbeth is a play that insists on meaning, invites recognition, and resists neutrality. In Hungary, this creates a unique dynamic. When politics is strong, meaning is controlled. When politics is dangerous, meaning is suppressed. When politics recedes, meaning dissipates. So what we see across these productions is not just change. It is a continuous negotiation. Macbeth is not simply staged in Hungary. It is constantly adjusted to the limits of what can be said. And this leads to a final paradox. Macbeth survives in Hungary, not because it reflects power, but because it cannot avoid reflecting it. And just one final remark, which I am going to improvise. Macbeth was last staged probably in 2020 and 2021 in a sort of experimental theater. So they only used 4 actors. The plot was significantly rewritten, and the focus was on the internal struggle of the characters. And there was talk of staging Macbeth again, with a view to the 16-year rule of Mr. Viktor Orbán, who you have probably heard about, the long-standing Prime Minister of Hungary. And now that urgency has been lost. So I wonder when Macbeth will next be staged, and when, and what kind of interpretation it will get. And well, basically, this is all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.